The crystalline spires of the galactic hub pierced the violet sky like frozen lightning, their surfaces reflecting the light of three setting suns. Within the grand amphitheater, thousands of beings from across the galaxy gathered, their excited whispers creating a symphony of anticipation. This was the day someone would finally challenge Nyxara, the warrior queen who had dominated the galactic combat arena for over a decade. Captain Kira Patel stood in the preparation chamber, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display showing her opponent's previous matches. At 6 feet tall, with shoulders hardened by years of combat training, she cut an imposing figure. Yet it wasn't her physical presence that made her unique. It was the quiet confidence that seemed to radiate from her very being. "Your death wish, human," a gravelly voice echoed through the chamber. Ambassador Drekther, a towering reptilian diplomat, entered with his usual air of superiority. "Nyxara has defeated champions from 1,000 worlds. What makes you think you'll fare any better?" Kira continued studying the hologram, her expression unchanged. "Because, Ambassador, your people have been fighting her wrong all these years." She turned to face him, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "You send warriors to defeat a warrior. I'm here to defeat a queen." The ambassador's scales shifted colors in amusement. Arrogant words from a species that barely learned to break atmosphere a century ago. "Yet here we are," Kira replied, checking the neural enhancers on her wrists. The technology was uniquely human, banned in regular combat, but allowed in challenge matches. Sometimes the youngest child sees what the elders miss. The preparation chamber's doors slid open with a soft hiss. A young alien with luminescent skin, Kira's assigned attendant, Junli, rushed in. "They're ready for you, Captain, the Queen. She's already in the arena." Kira nodded, taking a deep breath. The weight of her mission pressed heavily on her shoulders. This wasn't just about winning a fight. It was about exposing the truth behind Nyxara's reign of terror, about the disappeared species and the enslaved worlds that the Galactic Council chose to ignore. The walk to the arena felt like an eternity. The crowd's roar grew louder with each step, until it became a physical force pressing against her. As she emerged into the vast space, the first thing she noticed was the silence. The deafening cheers died to hushed whispers as the audience got their first look at the human challenger. Across the arena stood Nyxara. Unlike the hulking warriors Kira had studied, the queen was surprisingly elegant. Her silver-scaled body moved with liquid grace, and her forearms each carried a blade made of living crystal. But it was her eyes that caught Kira's attention, solid black orbs that seemed to absorb light itself. "A human?" Nyxara's voice carried across the arena without effort, a melodic sound that belied its owner's deadly nature. "Have they sent you to die for their entertainment, little one?" Kira rolled her shoulders, settling into a ready stance. "Actually, I volunteered. Someone needed to show the galaxy that you're not invincible." Nyxara's laugh echoed through the arena. "Countless warriors have tried. Their bones decorate my palace halls." "That's the difference between us, Nyxara," Kira replied, activating her neural enhancers. Blue light raced along her arms as the technology interfaced with her nervous system. "They fought for glory. I'm fighting for justice." The queen's expression shifted, something dark passing behind those bottomless eyes. "Justice? You know nothing of justice, human. This galaxy was chaos before I brought order through combat. Every challenge, every death serves a purpose." "You mean like the purpose behind the Krith genocide?" Kira's words cut through the arena like a blade. "Or the enslavement of the Meridian worlds?" For the first time, Nyxara's composed expression cracked. "You dare?" "I dare because someone has to. Because while the Galactic Council turns a blind eye to your order, millions suffer. Today that ends." The arena's energy field hummed to life, creating an impenetrable barrier between the combatants and the audience. Nyxara's blades began to glow with an inner fire, their crystalline surfaces refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. "Then come, human," the queen snarled, all pretense of civility gone. "Come and meet your end like all the others." Kira's neural enhancers pulsed, time seeming to slow as her enhanced nervous system kicked into high gear. She had one chance at this. One opportunity to expose the truth and change the galaxy forever. "No, Nyxara," she said quietly, though her words carried to every corner of the arena. "Today you meet humanity." The queen launched forward, her four blades creating a deadly web of light. But as the weapons descended toward their target, Kira smiled. The real battle was about to begin. The clash between Kira and Nyxara was unlike anything the arena had witnessed. Where the queen's four blades danced in lethal patterns, Kira moved with enhanced precision, her neural interfaces predicting trajectories microseconds before they occurred. But she wasn't trying to win, not yet. Each exchange was a conversation written in combat. Kira's defensive maneuvers drew Nyxara into increasingly aggressive attacks, forcing the queen to reveal more of her fighting style. The neural enhancers processed every detail, building a comprehensive analysis of Nyxara's combat patterns. "You fight strangely, human," Nyxara hissed between strikes. "Like you're reading a book rather than fighting for your life." A crystal blade sliced through the air where Kira's head had been a moment before. "Maybe I am," she replied, ducking under another swing. "The question is, what story are you trying to hide?" In the VIP observation pod, Ambassador Drekther watched with growing unease. He keyed a private communication channel. "The human knows too much. Activate contingency protocol." Deep beneath the arena, in maintenance tunnels forgotten by most, a small group of figures moved with urgent purpose. Leading them was Junli, Kira's attendant, her luminescent skin now dimmed to near invisibility. Behind her came a diverse group of rebels, former slaves, displaced species, and even a few rogue members of the Galactic Council. "The captain's keeping her occupied," Junli whispered, accessing a hidden terminal. "We have maybe 20 minutes before security realizes something's wrong." A towering figure stepped forward, General Voss, once Nyxara's most trusted military commander, now her most wanted fugitive. His crystalline exoskeleton bore deep scars from his escape. "The data core is 3 levels down. Once we have proof of her experiments, not even the Council can ignore it." Back in the arena, Kira's strategy was working. Nyxara's attacks grew more erratic, her legendary composure cracking. "You're stalling," the queen snarled, all four blades igniting with deadly energy. "Fight me." "Why?" Kira asked, her neural enhancers pulsing as they completed their analysis. "So you can add me to your collection, like the Krith scientists you disappeared when they discovered what you were doing to their people." The queen's black eyes widened, then narrowed to slits. "The Krith were weak. They would have destroyed everything with their foolish ideals of equality." "No," Kira countered, finally launching her first offensive strike, a precise blow that forced Nyxara back. "They discovered your bioweapon program, how you were manipulating species, turning them into living weapons." In the maintenance tunnels, Junli's team reached the data core. The massive computer system hummed with dark energy, its surfaces etched with warnings in a dozen languages. "By the stars," breathed Dr. Zyra, a xenobiologist who had faked her own death to escape Nyxara's purge. "The scale of it, she's been doing this for centuries." General Voss connected a quantum decoder to the system. "The captain's buying us time with more than her life. Every second she keeps Nyxara distracted." An alarm blared, cutting him off. Security forces would be mobilizing, but they had come too far to stop now. The arena crowd watched in stunned silence as the battle transformed. Kira was no longer simply defending. She was attacking with precise strikes that seemed to target specific points on Nyxara's armor. "Your neural technology," Nyxara spat, blocking a particularly close strike. "It's more than simple enhancement, isn't it?" Kira smiled grimly. "Humans don't just adapt, Your Majesty. We learn. Every second of this fight, my enhancers have been mapping your combat patterns, finding the weaknesses in your supposedly perfect technique." For the first time in decades, fear flickered across Nyxara's face. Not fear of defeat, she had tasted that before rising to power. This was fear of exposure. In the observation pod, Ambassador Drekther received an urgent communication. "The data core, they're accessing it." He slammed a scaled fist on the control panel. "Lock down the arena now." But it was too late. On every screen in the arena, including the massive displays meant to show the combat, images began to appear. Laboratory footage, experiment logs, genetic sequences showing how entire species had been altered against their will. The crowd's silence turned to horror, then anger. Centuries of carefully maintained order began to crumble. Nyxara screamed in rage, her blades blazing with power. You think exposing this changes anything? I brought order to chaos. I made them stronger. You made them slaves, Kira replied, her voice carrying to every corner of the arena. But strength, real strength, she gestured to the screens, where Junli's team could be seen fighting their way through security forces, protecting the data they'd retrieved. Real strength is standing up against tyranny, no matter the cost. The queen launched herself forward in a desperate attack, all four blades moving in perfect synchronization. But Kira was ready. Her neural enhancers had mapped every possible combination of Nyxara's attacks. As the blades descended, Kira moved through them like water through stones, each step precisely calculated. In one fluid motion, she disabled two of Nyxara's arms and sent the queen crashing to the arena floor. The remaining crystal blades skittered away, their glow fading. It's over, Kira said, standing over the fallen queen. Your reign ends today. But Nyxara's black eyes held something other than defeat. They held madness. If I fall, she snarled, pressing a hidden control on her armor, everything falls. Throughout the galactic hub, explosions began to rock the foundations. The queen's final contingency plan: if she couldn't rule, she would destroy everything. What she hadn't counted on was humanity's greatest strength, the ability to plan for the worst while hoping for the best. The galactic hub shuddered under the cascade of explosions. Massive support beams groaned as ancient security protocols activated, energy shields flickering to life around critical sectors. In the arena, chaos reigned as thousands of spectators rushed toward emergency exits. Kira's neural enhancers flashed urgent warnings, mapping structural weaknesses throughout the complex. You'd destroy everything just to avoid facing justice, she asked, maintaining her stance over the fallen queen. Nyxara's laugh was hollow. Justice? I've seen 1,000 worlds burn in the name of justice. I've watched civilizations tear themselves apart pursuing their ideal of right and wrong. She pushed herself up, black blood seeping from where Kira had disabled her secondary arms. Everything I built was to prevent that chaos. In the data core chamber, Junli and her team worked frantically to prevent total system collapse. General Voss's crystalline hands flew over control panels, his military experience proving invaluable. The hub's primary reactors are going critical, Dr. Zyra reported, her instruments scanning the facility's power grid. She's triggered a quantum cascade. If it reaches the planetary defense network, the entire system will be destroyed, Junli finished, her luminescent skin pulsing with stress patterns. Captain, are you receiving this? Through her neural interface, Kira processed the information in microseconds. The situation was worse than they'd imagined. Nyxara hadn't just built an empire, she'd rigged the entire sector to self-destruct if she lost control. There's a way to stop this, Kira said, addressing both her team and the queen. But I'll need your help, Nyxara. The queen's black eyes narrowed. You still don't understand. This isn't about winning or losing. This is about necessity. The strong must rule or everything falls to chaos. Look around you, Kira gestured to the crumbling arena. This is chaos, but it's chaos you created. She took a risk and deactivated her neural enhancers, letting the blue light fade from her arms. Show me. What? Show me what made you believe this was the only way. My enhancers didn't just map your fighting style, they recorded everything. Every micro-expression, every subtle tell. Kira knelt beside the fallen queen. You're not just fighting to maintain power, you're fighting to prevent something you've seen before. For a moment, the mask of the warrior queen cracked. In those ancient black eyes, Kira saw something she hadn't expected: fear, not of defeat but of repetition. The void cascade, Nyxara whispered. 3,000 years ago, before your species had even learned to make fire. I watched as an entire galactic arm tore itself apart in a war of ideologies. Billions dead. Entire species extinct, not from weapons but from the simple inability to coexist. Through her neural link, Kira shared this revelation with her team. Dr. Zyra's voice came back urgent. Captain, the quantum readings? They match ancient records of the Cascade. She's not just destroying the hub, she's trying to trigger another galactic catastrophe. Understanding dawned. You think strength is the only thing that prevents chaos, Kira said. But you're wrong. It's not strength that holds societies together, it's trust, cooperation, the willingness to see beyond our differences. Another explosion rocked the facility. In the data core, Junli called out, "We've got maybe 10 minutes before the cascade becomes irreversible." Nyxara's expression hardened. Pretty words won't save billions of lives. I've spent millennia building systems to prevent exactly this kind of collapse. Then help us prevent it now, Kira urged. Not through control, but through cooperation. Your experience, your knowledge, we need it. But we need it freely given, not imposed through force. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Around them, the arena continued to crumble. Finally, she spoke. The cascade can be stopped, but not from here. We need to reach the central control nexus, which you've rigged with enough traps to kill an army. General Voss's voice came through the neural link. Yes, Nyxara admitted, but not alone, together. She looked at Kira with new understanding. Your neural technology, combined with my genetic enhancements and knowledge of the system. Kira stood, offering her hand to the fallen queen. A human and the tiny but deadly working together. Think the galaxy's ready for that. For the first time in centuries, Nyxara smiled, not with malice but with something approaching hope. They'd better be. We have about 9 minutes to save them all. As they raced through the collapsing facility, former enemies now allied against a greater threat, Kira couldn't help but appreciate the irony. She had come to end a tyrant's reign through combat, only to find that the real victory would come through cooperation. Behind them, the arena, symbol of Nyxara's rule through strength, collapsed into dust. Ahead lay an uncertain future, but one they would face together. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity had discovered long ago. True strength lies not in the ability to stand alone, but in the courage to stand together. The central control nexus lay at the heart of the galactic hub, protected by 3,000 years of paranoid security measures. Kira and Nyxara sprinted through collapsing corridors, their unlikely alliance tested with every step. Behind them, the quantum cascade continued its deadly spread, consuming everything in its path. Your biosignature should get us through the outer defenses, Nyxara said, her remaining functional arms working to bypass a security terminal. But the inner chambers, she hesitated, something dark crossing her face. Kira's neural enhancers picked up the micro-expression. What aren't you telling me? A massive door slid open, revealing a chamber that defied physics. The walls rippled with quantum distortions, reality itself seeming to bend and twist. The inner chambers are protected by chronological barriers, Nyxara explained. Time moves differently there. It's how I've maintained power for so long. Through her neural link, Junli's voice crackled with interference. Captain, we've got a problem. The cascade is accelerating. Dr. Zyra's calculations show we have less than 5 minutes before it reaches critical mass. Time dilation could work in our favor, Kira said, studying the shifting patterns with her enhancers. If we can manipulate the chronological flow. It's not that simple, Nyxara interrupted. The barriers aren't just security measures, they're containing something I created long ago when I first took power. Before Kira could respond, General Voss's voice cut through the neural link. Don't trust her, Captain. I've seen what's in those chambers, the experiments, the temporal abominations. We don't have time for trust issues, Kira snapped, watching as another section of the hub collapsed behind them. Whatever's in there, whatever you created, we deal with it together or we all die. Those are our options. Nyxara's black eyes met Kira's. You still don't understand what you're asking. In those chambers, time isn't just distorted. It's weaponized. I used it to create the perfect warriors. beings who exist in multiple timelines simultaneously, experiencing every possible combat outcome at once. The Quantum Legion, Junli gasped through the link. The warriors no one could defeat because they'd already fought every possible version of the battle. Yes, Nyxara confirmed, but something went wrong. They began experiencing every possible reality at once. The pain, the madness. I couldn't destroy them, so I contained them, trapped in a moment that never ends. Kira's enhancers processed this information, running simulations and probability analyses. Your time warriors are experiencing infinite possibilities, locked in a temporal loop, and now we need to cross their prison while reality itself is unraveling. Another explosion rocked the facility. Through the neural link, Dr. Zyra's voice was urgent. The cascade has reached the planetary defense grid. We're detecting temporal anomalies throughout the system. The barriers are failing, Nyxara realized, her remaining hands clenching into fists. When they collapse, your warriors will be free, experiencing every moment of their torture across infinite timelines, Kira finished, while the cascade tears apart the fabric of space-time itself. They stood before the entrance to the inner chambers, watching as reality rippled and distorted around them. Through the temporal distortions, Kira caught glimpses of shadowy figures, the Quantum Legion, trapped between moments, their forms blurring between infinite possibilities. I can't ask you to go in there, Nyxara said quietly. Even with your neural technology, the temporal exposure could shatter your mind. Kira smiled grimly, activating a secondary protocol in her enhancers. Blue light raced across her skin in complex patterns. Good thing humans come prepared. We developed this shielding technology after our first encounters with temporal anomalies. We call it the Chronoshield Protocol. You knew, Nyxara's eyes widened. You knew about the temporal weapons. We suspected. Humanity hasn't survived this long by being unprepared. Kira extended her hand, the Chronoshield's energy field expanding to encompass them both. The real question is, are you ready to face your past to save our future? For a moment, Nyxara stared at the offered protection, a gesture of trust from a species she had underestimated. Then, with a grace that belied her injuries, she stepped into the shield's embrace. Together then, human, into infinity. They stepped through the threshold, reality fracturing around them. The Quantum Legion awaited, their tortured existence about to collide with a universe on the brink of collapse. And somewhere in that chaos lay their only hope of salvation, if they could reach it in time. Through the neural link, Junli's voice came one last time before the temporal interference cut them off. 3 minutes to cascade critical. Whatever you're going to do, Captain, do it fast. Kira and Nyxara advanced into the temporal maelstrom, the Chronoshield humming with power. Before them, the shadows of the Quantum Legion began to take form, warriors caught between what was, what is, and what could be. The real challenge was about to begin. Inside the temporal prison, reality fragmented like shattered glass. Each shard reflected a different possibility, a different moment in time. The Quantum Legion materialized around them, warriors trapped in eternal combat, their forms shifting between past, present, and future simultaneously. Your neural interface, Nyxara called out as they advanced through the chaos. Can it process what we're seeing? Kira's enhancers struggled to make sense of the temporal data flooding her systems. Partially, each warrior exists in multiple states at once. They're not just experiencing different timelines, they're living them all simultaneously. A figure emerged from the quantum fog, a soldier whose body flickered between youth and age, victory and defeat, life and death. Its eyes held the madness of infinite experience. When it spoke, its voice echoed across countless possibilities. Queen Commander, Prisoner Creator, you return remained will arrive. The Chronoshield rippled as temporal energies battered against it. Through the failing neural link, Dr. Zyra's voice barely reached them. 2 minutes, cascade, spreading. The control nexus, Nyxara pointed toward a crystalline structure at the chamber's center. It's designed to channel temporal energy if we can reverse the flow. We could use the cascade itself to collapse the time loops, Kira finished, her enhancers already calculating possibilities. But the Legion will fight us across every timeline, Nyxara confirmed. They exist in all possible moments. They know every move we could make before we make it. Another warrior phased through the chronoshield as if it didn't exist, its weapons changing form with each passing second. All paths lead to War Peace Death Rebirth. The cycle cannot must will break. Kira's mind raced, processing the tactical nightmare before them. How do you fight an enemy that experiences every possible outcome? Then it hit her, you don't. Nyxara, she called out, dodging a blade that existed in 3 times simultaneously. You created them to be perfect warriors, to experience every possibility. But did you ever show them another way? The Queen's black eyes widened with understanding. They're trapped in combat loops because that's all they know, all I taught them. Kira deactivated her combat protocols, letting her enhancers focus purely on temporal shielding. Then let's teach them something new. Before Nyxara could protest, Kira stepped forward, lowering her defensive stance. The nearest Legion warrior raised weapons that shifted through 1,000 forms. What is this strategy, deception, surrender? None of those, Kira replied, her voice steady. This is choice. You're experiencing every possibility, but you're not bound to any of them. You can choose your path. The warrior froze, its form stabilizing for a brief moment. Around them, other Legion members began to still, their infinite variations slowing as they processed this new concept. Impossible, inevitable, unknown, the first warrior spoke, its voice less fractured than before. Nyxara stepped forward, her remaining arms lowered. I created you to be perfect warriors, but I trapped you in an endless cycle of combat. I was wrong. There are other paths. Through the neural link, Junli's voice screamed. 1 minute, the cascade is reaching critical. The crystalline control nexus pulsed with growing power as reality continued to unravel around them. But something was changing. The Legion warriors, for the first time in 3,000 years, began to move with purpose rather than infinite possibility. We choose, chose, will choose, their voices unified across timelines. As one, they turned toward the nexus, their combined temporal energy focusing on a single point in space-time. Kira's enhancers flashed with sudden understanding. They're not just experiencing time, they're directing it, all of them across all possibilities, choosing the same moment. The cascade, Nyxara breathed. They're creating a temporal focal point. Kira rushed to the nexus, her enhancers interfacing with its ancient systems. If we can channel the cascade's energy through their focal point, we can collapse all timelines into one, Nyxara finished, her hands flying over the controls. But the power required will burn out my neural enhancers and probably kill us all, Kira acknowledged. Unless we trust, Nyxara met her gaze, across all possibilities. The Legion surrounded them, their infinite forms converging on a single purpose. The cascade's energy roared through the facility, reality tearing apart at the seams. At the nexus, human and alien technology merged, channeling power that could reshape time itself. Now, Kira shouted, as her enhancers reached critical capacity. In that moment, across every possible timeline, they made the same choice. The Legion focused their temporal energy, Nyxara directed the cascade's power, and Kira's neural interface provided the bridge between past, present, and future. Reality shuddered, twisted, and snapped back into place. The temporal prison dissolved, not into chaos, but into clarity. The Legion warriors, no longer fractured across infinite possibilities, stood whole. The cascade's energy, rather than destroying everything, had been channeled into healing the very fabric of space-time. Through the restored neural link, Junli's voice was thick with relief. The cascade, it's stabilizing, whatever you did. We chose, Kira said simply, looking at the transformed Legion and their former queen. All of us together chose a different path. Nyxara surveyed her former warriors, now free from their temporal prison. 3,000 years of certainty, undone by a human showing us the power of choice. The Legion commander stepped forward, its form now solid and singular. We will see many paths, but this one. It gestured to the changed chamber. This one we choose freely. As the galactic hub's emergency systems began the process of reconstruction, Kira realized that they had done more than stop a catastrophe. They had proven that even beings trapped in infinite possibilities could find their way to a single truth. The future is not predetermined by the past, but shaped by the choices we make together. The tiny but deadly queen and her quantum warriors had finally learned what humanity had known all along. True strength lies not in controlling all possibilities, but in having the courage to choose one path and walk it with allies at your side.